Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. Quick shout out to my newest patron, Jeffrey D. Thank you for choosing to support the channel. A few weeks ago, I told you guys in the future we would go over Elon's control and voting power at SpaceX, and today is the day. And no worries, I will keep this as brief as possible so you all have the key takeaways and the most important information to vote if and when we have this merger proposal. And listen, there is still a non-0% chance that this merger or acquisition between SpaceX and Tesla never happens. However, based on all the public information we have and all of Elon's commentary, I do think it is more likely than not. And so from that standpoint, I just want everybody to be as informed as possible ahead of the vote. And because this is such a complicated topic, we will go bit by bit so it's easier to digest. So based only on the most recent public filings from SpaceX, here's what we have. Economically, Elon owns 48% of SpaceX, but he has over 80% of the voting control. So I want to draw your focus to the box in the middle, the dual class structure of SpaceX. We have Class A and Class B. Class A shares are what we have at Tesla. One share gets one vote. But at SpaceX, they have a separate class, which is Class B, so every Class B share has 10 votes. And so zooming out for SpaceX as a whole, for Class A shares, there's about 7.7 billion shares outstanding. And for Class B, there's roughly 5.5 billion shares outstanding. So of the roughly 13 billion shares outstanding at SpaceX, Elon owns about 6.4 billion of them. Now you'll see this as converted Class A. This breakdown right here, this is all of Elon's shares, but the way they do it, this would be as if all of his Class B shares were converted to Class A just to determine the overall economic ownership. So you can see of those 6.4 billion shares that Elon owns, 3.9 billion are Class B shares that are held in trusts. Another 1.3 billion shares are restricted Class B shares that Elon holds personally. And the restricted just means these have vesting requirements, aka performance milestones for SpaceX. We'll cover those in a future video. And rounding out the 6.4 billion shares, Elon has roughly 849 million in Class A shares in trusts. And then he owns 350 million Class B options. So clearly, the majority of Elon's shares are indeed Class B. Now, why is this so important? Because these Class B shares, which act as a separate class, are responsible for electing 51% of the SpaceX board. As of today, that board is 9 seats, which means the Class B shares are fully responsible for electing 5 of those 9 board members. So again, 5 of those 9 SpaceX board seats are voted on by only the Class B shares, which Elon has the majority of. And really the only other people that are allowed to have Class B shares are people like Gwynne Shotwell and I believe Ira Ehrenpreis and maybe a small handful of others. But again, their ownership of Class B shares is very small. We're talking tens of millions max. So Elon has the majority. Another reason why this is so important, let's say SpaceX does acquire Tesla, largely by issuing new Class A shares. That of course would take Elon's economic ownership down below 48%. But because these Class B shares can only go to Elon and or a few select people, Elon would still maintain control for a majority of the board seats, even if his overall voting power somehow fell below 50%. For example, if SpaceX had to issue an astronomical, pun intended, number of Class A shares to acquire Tesla that took Elon's voting control to 45% of all outstanding shares, both Class A and Class B, when they vote together, and an example of that would be those remaining 4 board seats, those are chosen by a combined vote of both Class A and Class B shares. But even in that event, Elon would still maintain the majority of the Class B shares, meaning he would still control a majority of the board at SpaceX. And that is crucial and the most likely reason why this would be SpaceX acquiring Tesla, where they would maintain the SpaceX control picture. Another important clarification, even though 1.3 billion of Elon's Class B shares are restricted right now, meaning he doesn't have full vesting control, he does currently have voting control of those shares. So of course that scenario where SpaceX would have to issue that many Class A shares is very unlikely. But the point is, even in that event, Class B shares are the only shares that vote on 5 of the 9 board seats, meaning those Class A shares don't get a vote for 5 of the 9, which means Elon would maintain a control of majority of the board. And based on what we saw Tesla deal with in Delaware, that is a good thing. Now sure, you can argue negatives here as well, but look, at the end of the day, if you don't trust Elon to lead the company, then you really have to wrestle with yourself and ask the question, am I comfortable investing in these companies moving forward? And again, any new Class B shares can only go to Elon and a select group of people. Meaning, if Elon were for some reason to sell a portion of these Class B shares, they would be converted to Class A and be demoted effectively to having 1 vote per share. So the simple takeaway is this dual class structure will protect Elon, SpaceX, and potentially Tesla in the event of a SpaceX acquisition of Tesla. And yes, that of course assumes that you trust Elon to lead these companies. And this is the setup that would give Elon the type of control he needs to guide the company on these multi-decade type goals. And he can do so without the risk of being forced into short-term pressure for stock optimization and more of a focus on short-term quarterly earnings performance. And as it stands now, these 5 board seats elected only by Class B shares, they can only be removed by the Class B vote, which means it makes it really hard for public shareholders or any outsider to force a change in the board's composition. So it's a very strong anti-takeover and anti-activist protection. And the board majority at SpaceX can approve these huge, uncertain investments, whereas historically, some other public boards might be a bit more resistant to things like that because the payoffs are so uncertain and into the future. And it should be well understood, but the big decisions, acquisitions, mergers, big equity issuance, or any structural change requires board approval. So Elon effectively controlling a majority of the board seats gives him a practical ability to move forward on those deals that align with what he wants to get done. And look, again, I'm not saying this is all good because everything in life ultimately does come with trade-offs. But in this case, they really all boil down to one thing. Do you trust Elon or not? So hopefully that visual helps you to understand Elon's current economic ownership and voting control at SpaceX right now, because clearly that's a key piece of information for everyone to understand to vote properly on a potential merger or acquisition. For this one, I just have to bring you guys behind the scenes into a meeting I just had recently with my wife for one of the business ventures she's working on. And this video is sponsored by Whisperflow, which just released yet another new feature, the Whisperflow Note Taker.
If I find what my label is inside TikTok, they already want to push those videos out to people. So if I did well in like beauty or whatever, then I would want to try and sell beauty. I feel like it's like harder to get to in the TikTok shop app. Like, I don't understand, like, you need to see it because you're not really in TikTok.
So I'm sure you saw on the screen, you have a live transcription as people are speaking. You can easily add your own notes throughout the call, and it can read the data from your Google Calendar invite so it gets all of the names correct. And after the meeting, you will have your notes, the full transcript word for word with each person labeled properly, which I can tell you not all tools do well. And of course, you'll have a summary, but in this case, it's very useful. Some others will just give you random points, but this one is actually nailing what we need to do next. And for the overall summary of the call, it'll usually give you about a 2-minute read of the entire conversation. And right in the tool, you can copy the conversation directly into an MD file. And looking at the full transcript, I was super impressed. It actually got the names of these analytic platforms perfectly right the first time, that Calodata, Ecotick, and Fastmoss. And these TikTok shopper names, which are actually hard to get. It got all of them right except Kobe Lane, which probably had more to do with my lack of pronunciation. But let's say you wanted to correct that in the future. You can build out Whisperflow's dictionary over time, so if it does make mistakes, you can type in what it got wrong wrong and then put in the correction for the future, save changes, and then it'll get it after that. And what's slick is you can connect Notetaker to any AI of your choice to ask questions after the meetings. What was the main thing Ashley was struggling with from our recent TikTok shop conversation? And there you go. Notice how I didn't have to copy and paste anything into Cursor. I just asked the question in a new window. It knew to pull the Whisperflow Notetaker and find that transcript, and it gave me the answer. Her biggest issue right now is basically understanding the UI. So this is an awesome new tool from Whisperflow. This landscape changes quickly, but I have to say right now, when it comes to understanding and getting the words right and the ability to search those past meetings to get answers you need, Whisperflow's Notetaker has been the best in my experience. And perhaps best of all, Whisperflow Notetaker is free to use, but you can use the link in my description or the promo code on desktop to get 1 month of Whisper Pro with unlimited meetings in Notetaker plus unlimited words in Whisperflow. Enjoy. And just one point I wanted to add when it comes to the Tesla shareholders voting and how much control they have or how much say they're going to have in this whole thing. Alexandra, Tesla Boomer Mama, has done a great job of covering this and trying to get us a retail figure. She's roughly somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20% retail ownership of Tesla stock as of today. That's contrary to what most of the bigger publications would have it listed at, and they're saying somewhere between 30 and 40% retail ownership. I just want to make it clear it is impossible to know a precise figure because it's not public information, so all you can do is deduce from what you have. And from that standpoint, I'm not sure it's worth going into the weeds on it. Personally, I would land somewhere in between. I think the most realistic outcome, the conservative middle of the road take, would be somewhere around 25% retail ownership. And of course, that number changes every day. But over the past few years, it was fairly well understood. Retail ownership was up over 40%. But because institutions have been buying Tesla and because of new shares being issued for things like CEO performance awards, that has led to greater insider and institutional ownership of Tesla. So the trend for Tesla stock retail ownership over the past few years is definitely on a downtrend, but the specific figure is unknowable. And as always, if and when we get an actual proposal from SpaceX, we'll dive in to make sure you can have an informed vote. The information is reporting today that Tesla is getting ready for an August launch of the Cybercab without a steering wheel in Austin. The article didn't say a whole lot that we don't already know, but importantly, it said Tesla told staff it plans to begin rollout by offering Cybercab rides to Tesla employees on public roads, and then to start incorporating the vehicles into the Robotaxi service in Austin a few days after that. While the end of August is currently the internal target for the public launch of the Cybercab, the timeline could change as Tesla continues to make final preparations. The article said Tesla completed emergency training with first responders in Austin last week, teaching them how to handle issues with the Cybercabs, like how to move the vehicle out of the way if needed. So that's effectively the only new information we would be learning from that article. However, it's exciting if you believe it. And as I've been saying, just because they might launch with a few Cybercabs does not mean they're going to immediately be able to scale. I think the most likely outcome is we see somewhere between 2 and 10 Cybercabs giving employees rides for a few days. Then they open it up to the public a few days after that, but keep the Cybercab fleet limited, maybe even in certain portions of the current Austin geofence for the next few weeks after this Cybercab debut. Some of you might recall in a video back in early May, my initial guess for when Cybercab would make its Robotaxi service debut was September 15th. Then a few weeks after that, I said I think it could happen as early as July. So if this report is true and Tesla follows through, it'll be a splitting of the difference in August. So this won't be a lever for true scale, but this will be a huge lever nonetheless, because validating and getting autonomy proven with the Cybercab is a huge deal. It will, of course, bring down the cost profile of Tesla's robotaxi operations, and hopefully in a few weeks, Tesla can get a handful of Cybercabs active in all active markets. And just because we haven't seen anything official, don't forget Cybercab is currently testing all across the country. Here's one spotted in King of Prussia, PA, outside of Philly. And the local news in Nashville just did a short segment on 15 Cybercabs stationed in Franklin. On the FSD front, Fabian shared a video saying, after all these years of waiting, I can finally make a Holmar style video of Tesla's FSD in Zurich. He said FSD nails everything everything. Trams, cyclists, pedestrians, traffic, everything no problem, it works. And it's not a direct one-to-one comparison, but let's not forget, Tesla currently has its autonomous software, supervised FSD, running in 12 unique countries, 13 if you include China. And if you list Puerto Rico separately, even though it's a US territory. And to make the closest comparison I could for Waymo, I included any country where Waymo is giving paid rides or where they're doing public testing with or without safety drivers in the vehicles. The number of countries for Waymo right now is 3: the United States, the United Kingdom, and Japan in Tokyo. So I think it's easy for those of us that live in the United States to be so hyper-focused here, understandably so. Just remember, globally, Tesla has a real competitive advantage in that it is gathering such unique data, and in most of these locations, excluding China, it can use all of these learnings to strengthen and make the autonomous software that much more robust. And from a more short-term perspective, all of these videos and feedback and public commentary should only help to result in a positive yes vote at the TCMB meeting expected in October later this year, which of course could be the path for supervised FSD to roll out broadly across the EU. And as we're seeing in the United States, once the word begins to spread, that should mean very positive things for adoption of Teslas in general. Back to Robotaxi, we did get new safety data that goes through July 15th. So on the dashboard that's always linked below, you can see the 2 new incidents that took place in June were both not the fault of Tesla. One, we had the Robotaxi parked in an alley and a passenger vehicle reversed into the Tesla vehicle, and the other had the Robotaxi stopped at a red left turn arrow and an SUV changing lanes hit another car and then hit the Tesla. So we don't have full reporting for the month of July yet, but we do have 0 incidents there. In June, Tesla had 0 at-fault incidents. In May, Tesla had 2, but one was a remote operator driving the vehicle into a tree stump, and the other one was Tesla turning into a metal chain across a parking lot entrance. Then April, Tesla had 0 at fault, and March, Tesla had 0 at fault, and February, Tesla had 0 at fault. Which means dating back through February this year, Tesla has only had 2 incidents where it's been at fault. And both of them were incredibly minor, one with a chain, one with a tree stump, and the latter being the remote operator. So great performance by Tesla's Robotaxi the past few months. Now that data would not yet include something like we saw over the weekend where an unsupervised Robotaxi did hit and go through some bollards. Now yes, this is not safety critical, but I did explain this is part of the reason, in my opinion, Robotaxi is not ready to scale. Now, I am not going to rehash all of the drama that ensued after this. You can go to my X account to see it if you haven't already. But the TLDW, just because Robotaxi is incredibly safe, does not mean it's refined enough to the point where it's ready to reach true scale. And when I say true scale, I'm talking at least in the thousands. In South Korea, Tesla's been performing extraordinarily well through the first 7 months of this year. Total sales are up over 66,300 units, up just under 150% year over year. And the article said Tesla's Model Y just did something no imported car was supposed to do in a market that overwhelmingly buys local. That being, the Model Y became the best-selling new car in Korea in July. And we're not talking a few hundred units. Tesla has now cleared 10,000 units in Korea in each of the past 5 months. Joe Tetmeyer shared some new photos of the new Optimus factory construction progress in Texas, saying there's a chance the concrete floors are already in construction, along with more steel assembly and the footings. He's estimating this steel structure is about 1/4 of the final size, and it's continuing to have 4 floors at least so far. Joe also shared a video of the test track operation, saying there's more Cybercabs on the track and in staging than I've ever seen. Superchargers are also being installed, hinting we will be seeing this level of activity for some time to come. Ariane shared that Tesla's Robotaxi now allows you to take multiple rides in the same car. You can now edit the trip after you reach your destination and click start ride again. Your seatbelt can be taken off and the door doors can be opened, which of course would theoretically allow people to get in and out or to pick up food or drop off items. He said you can just click edit trip after you arrive and the start ride button will reappear. He was able to do 2 new rides and the third was showing availability. So it's pretty easy to think about use cases where this makes a lot of sense. If you get a ride just to go to Walgreens or CVS to grab a drink or a snack and you're only going to be inside for a minute or two, it's not ideal to have to go back outside, hail another car, maybe wait another 5 or 10 minutes. It'd be great just to have your vehicle waiting for you outside for a few minutes. So the question becomes, how long will Tesla give these people doing things like this? And I'm sure that time allotment will change and adapt over time. But I do think it's great to see this feature being implemented. When it comes to Tesla's approval for robotaxi operations in Las Vegas, I did want to clarify, Sawyer did astutely point out this is an interim order. So there is a chance that Tesla's full request, the 5,000 vehicles, will be approved at a later date. So nothing we covered last week is wrong. All of those limitations are still in place currently. I just wanted to add there is still likely more to come, but what type and level of extra leniency is still a question mark. For what I'm about to say, I'm not one for baseless speculation, but I think it's worth pointing out, dating back 5 years, the latest we have ever heard about an annual Tesla shareholder meeting has been August 13th. And that was back in 2021. So fast forward to today, it's August 17th, and we have not heard anything about the annual shareholder meeting for this year. So this could be absolutely nothing. Tesla has been known to change the dates when it announces the annual meeting. But relative to the past 5 years, we are now the latest we have ever been before hearing the date, which could mean Tesla is indeed working on something big, like a possible acquisition by SpaceX. And this time around, unfortunately for us, because the annual event wasn't held last year until November, Tesla has 13 months from that date to host this year's meeting, meaning they have until December to actually hold the meeting. But it's worth pointing out, although last year's meeting was held in November, we knew about that date in July. So all this to say, hopefully we hear about the actual date sometime in the next few weeks, as we're already late relative to Tesla's historical actions. So it could mean they're up to something, or it could mean nothing at all. Just figured it was worth pointing out. TechAU shared an image of one of the new Waymo Ojai vehicles getting involved in a collision with a bus. This was in Philadelphia, and he said the Waymo vehicle with 2 trained specialists in the car entered an intersection on a green light and collided with a coach bus that ran a red light. Thankfully, nobody was injured in this collision, but if you go to search for any reporting on this, you will find effectively nothing, which I think is no surprise, but certainly not an optimal start for the new Waymo Ojai. And just an FYI, Tesla has officially launched its vehicle-to-load capability for all Model Y premium trims in the US. And yes, all Model Y Ls are also capable of vehicle-to-load as well as vehicle-to-home with a Powerwall 3. But as far as we know, for now, vehicle-to-home is not supported right now on the Model Y Premium. But an important clarification, this is only working for Model Y Premium vehicles in the US if your vehicle has the newer PCS2, the power conversion system. So you can head to Tesla's parts catalog and input your VIN to see if you have the required part. But yes, certain premium Model Ys now have the ability to power external devices. Tesla stock closed the day at $339.30, down 0.87%, and SpaceX closed at $146.23, up 4.45%, all while the NDX was down 0.17%. Don't forget, check out Whisperflow's note taker linked below. You will not be disappointed. Whisperflow is doing incredibly exciting things right now. I honestly wish I had 20 minutes to show you how I use this, and I might launch another channel or a membership or something so I can talk about things in more detail. But just to show you right here, my usage continues to climb quickly. I'm up over 67,000 total words, which means yes, I'm in the top 0.5% of users. It's that good. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.